Welcome back to the Incredible Machines podcast, where we sit down with incredible people doing incredible things. Today we sit down with Gumede, a thought leader whose journey weaves resilience, social change, and ethical innovation. We talk about resilience through life's highs and lows, food justice and caring, AI, indifference, and the future. So settle in as we dive in deep with an episode filled with insights, honesty, and practical wisdom for building a world that works for everyone. Let's jump in with the incredible Gumede.
It was incredible. I've actually never done anything like this before. I've encountered a lot of templates and a lot of sessions about trying to understand yourself and your history, but I've never had an instrument this brilliant at being able to draw out, my life throughout the various stages. And the fact that it starts from, it's a blank piece of paper. You basically have zero until whenever. You really cannot be lazy about it. You have to think about sort of the early years, the mid years, the later years, and so on. And I found it incredible. And obviously, I can't plot everything on it, but it certainly surfaced a lot of the influences that have shaped me.
Yeah. So it's I think I said to you, it's an EO tool, so Entrepreneurs Organization tool that we use. I got from them, and for the listeners and watchers, we'll make it available in the show notes. It's something that I do quite frequently. I've done more than once, and with my wife, we'll sit and we'll do it because there's, like you said, first of all, there's times you carry on plotting, and then there's stuff that you haven't remembered, and it only just comes to you, and you add it, and that was a low or that was a high. The simplicity of it is amazing. So for those listening and watching, it's pretty much a horizontal plane, positive above, negative below. And it's a line. So it starts on your birth, which is usually you start quite high because you were born. That's probably usually a positive thing. And then you have like your dog died or something, and then you go up. It ends up being an ECG for your life, essentially, for that thing. Yeah. So yours, you were born in. Do you want to start off with it? It's born in KZN.
Yeah, I was. But before I get into it, funny enough, I did do a similar thing using AI. Projecting, I'd seen it on one of the social media sort of pages, getting to use the deep research setting of what AI thinks the rest of your life is going to look like and when are you likely to proverbially kick the bucket. And you're going to kick the bucket after those years because it stops saying anything. It just, it sort of does what... an actuarial scientist probably would do, and then it embeds in that a whole lot of assumptions and let me be frank, biases and shortcomings. But it was quite an interesting thing. Mine went silent after 105, which was both a good thing and a bad thing, because it means that if it's even remotely right, then it means I'll get it to 100, and 105 I'll take gladly. It says a lot between now and 105, and then it says absolutely nothing after 105. I think it's too afraid to say that you won't be here.
After so that. It's interesting. Are you using a generative AI for that?
Yeah, it was actually a prompt somebody else had shared, and I forget and there's this very specific sequence of words you need to use for it to give you that depth of feedback, and it's actually quite remarkable. It's remarkable. It takes into account basically what you're currently doing, how that's likely to pan out, and obviously there's a huge disclaimer that this is just
it can be different every time that it runs. But how much information do you give it?
No, it's your entire interaction with it. So if you're using, say, ChatGPT, it will be aware of all your other chats. It will consolidate everything you've put into the large language model, and more specifically ChatGPT. It's well aware of my fitness routine. It's aware of my current career
I suppose you could feed in your DNA results if you wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, I had a problem with my shoulder. I had an op, and it also talks about how, later on in life I must be wary of this because of that and so on. It's actually quite good, but it's only as good as the amount of input you feed it, and then it's gonna. I mean, the more detailed it is, I think the more it can sort of take a shot at guessing.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Sorry, then getting back to your question, you asked where did it all start for me?
Yeah.
Yes, KZN, born and bred.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's awesome. We had a lot of KZN people. We're going to talk a fair bit about AI, but that comes later on in your journey.
Yeah.
You schooled in KZN. You've always lived here.
Yes, I've always. I've been very fortunate also to have had the opportunity to live in different parts of the country and also of the world. But I was born in just outside in Marinnhill, just outside Pinetown, and I'm told that for a couple of months I lived in Claremont, here just close to Pinetown, and then we moved to deeper into rural KZN. But I was too young. I can't remember a lot of that. What I do remember is us living then in Empangeni. And I also remember at that time the family unit. My mum and my dad divorced later, but I think when I was 5, 6, 7, I remember a period of being a nuclear family. And I had the opportunity then to go from a township school to go to what was then considered a multiracial school. And it was in the late 70s. And I didn't know a word of English, by the way. When we were kids, we used to play and push bricks, and we used to speak in isiZulu and then translate in isiZulu what we're saying in English. I mean, it was just gibberish, You'll be pushing and you'll say, and then you'll say, that means move out of my way in English. I mean, you haven't spoken a word of English. You've spoken isiZulu, gibberish, and then you've translated the gibberish into English, and then the other person you're playing with will also push and then gibberish and then revert back in what they meant as a response, because we didn't know how to speak English at all. And why that is actually quite a story is I then went to this multiracial school, and I met the principal in the interview because I needed to obviously be accepted. And he spoke to me in English, and I answered in gibberish because this is my understanding of what English is. And he just like shook his head, and then he said, "No, man, this." And fortunately, he could speak isiZulu. Then he said, "No, man, that's not English." Then I replied in isiZulu that, "Hey, by the way, I don't know English. It's not my first language, so you can't expect me." And he thought it was so amusing that instead of being apologetic, I would rebut within some form of defense as to, well, this is not my first language. This gibberish is the best I could do anyway. And when I was in Stand 5, I was the most improved student. And he reminded the entire assembly of that episode, that meeting when I first got to the school, how I couldn't speak English and it was gibberish. And for him to see me now get this most improved student award in what now would be grade 7 was personally very heartwarming for him. And the embarrassment was something else.
Yeah, that is remarkable. I think that why that story would be, one of the reasons why that story would be remarkable is because I think the average person would just keep quiet if they didn't speak. You just you just spoke, and then you just courage to do it, and you thought you were doing it because that's what it was. But okay,
jeez,
yeah. And then it goes. That's the neutral. There's a massive high here in your lifeline.
Yeah, I obviously went to this multiracial school, which was a boarding school in Ishawi, and at the time I really didn't like it. I not liking it is a soft sort of term. I really didn't like it because it wasn't home. There were much older kids there, and we went home like very seldom. And it was quite a difficult period. and there was a lot of bullying as well. But fortunately, before I went there, for some reason, my mum had seen it necessary that I take up karate as a kid. So in terms of self-defense, I wasn't under-equipped. I mean, not that I looked for fights, but I very quickly built sort of a safety net around me, because it was a harsh environment with bigger kids and a lot of bullying, but I wasn't bullied. Let me make that quite clear. And I'm grateful that she took me there. I really didn't like it, and it's actually quite weird, because looking back, most of my friendships, the really solid friendships, are the ones I built at that school, and I now love it. I mean, I've gone back to the school in different capacities and tried to assist the school become a better institution. I think it's going to be close to 100 in not so many years. It's in the 90s, and it was run by German nuns at the time. It was an opportunity, certainly for people like myself and a few other kids who came from the township, to learn English and be able to speak English like on a continuous basis, which was great. And the reason why my mum insisted we go there was to learn how to speak English, because we'd cry and say we don't like it, it's rough and this. And she says, just stick it out. You learn how to speak English. That's why you're going there. We're like, no. But I'm glad she did. She insisted. And from that school in Ishawi, I then was able to go to really, really the opposite side of the spectrum. When I got to that school, by the way, I think our termly fee, can you imagine, this is now tuition and boarding, was 60 Rand a term. And you get food in that, and they do your laundry once a week. I mean, it was just it's as good as we weren't paying anything. And when I left, there were outcries because the fee was so expensive. It was now 110 Rand a term, and everyone was complaining about how expensive it was. And quite honestly, it felt like quite a jump. I went from that environment where we were literally scraping through meals as a school, because you can understand there wasn't a lot of money, to very sort of premier elite schools. I mean, I went to one in Hillcrest here, prep school, which was amazing. I mean, I'd never seen. I couldn't believe we ate like this every day. I mean, it was like, sure, this is what you eat. I mean, we ate well when we went home, but I couldn't believe this is what you actually ate continuously at school. And from there, things even went a lot higher. I mean, from the school in Hillcrest, I went through to one of the top schools out in the Maritzburg area, boarding school as well for boys. And it was unbelievable. And having had the background that I had, with the rough and tumble of primary, high school was like, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I thought it was incredible. Everything was like literally brighter, shinier, faster, newer. Everything was just incredibly well. And I enjoyed my time there, and I was exposed to different things. At the primary school, I only played one sport. High school, I had multiple options. All of a sudden, you can be this or that, or try this or try that, which was very, very good. And I've got no qualms about my upbringing, and certainly in that time, obviously, my mum, who by then was really the pillar of solidity in all our lives, worked extremely hard. I come from a medium-sized family. I got 2 sisters and 2 brothers, although one is now late. Sorry. And she educated us literally through blood, sweat, and tears. And we all went to incredibly good schools, including outside the country. And my sister was in the US. I mean, this is in the 80s, 70s and 80s. I don't know how she did it. I really don't know how she did it. But I'm so glad and grateful that she did.
Yeah, I said one of the questions is we asked the guests, who are your incredible machines, and you've named your mom.
Yeah, not because she's my mom. Well, that because I love her, but that's aside. I can't think of many sort of examples as a black female in that time without all the props of sort of, BE and affirmative action and this, that. How she cracked the code, I still don't know. I really don't. Because it's difficult now with all of those props in place. Can you imagine
No, yeah.
at that time?
No, this is incredible. Yeah, I mean, my wife I think she's incredible, and she's very big on the education side and that sort of stuff. So, and just putting the kids first, and that's the most important thing. It's interesting the space we are in education, and specifically with AI, which we'll talk about a bit later. How stuff is going to be. I think things are going to be changing significantly in the way, and they will have the options to change it. Someone asked me yesterday actually about what degree they should do, and I still said like a degree, yeah, is a great thing. I've got a degree. We work with tertiary education institutes and that sort of thing, but like now, if I was going back to do my degree or my honors, I would be focusing on like a quite broad on it, on what I would do. I think I did that anyway, actually. It was media and comms, and then I did brand strategy later on in my honors. But and then I would have my side hustle, which would be whatever that's like if it's AI or if it was like cybersecurity or something like that, and I would do the online courses and do the YouTube videos and that, because it's democratized learning, and it's right now. There's like this tool that we playing with in an agency, or playing with it is the right word, I would say right now, because it's not commercial for us right now, but Replit, which is the development using AI. And I watched a live stream the other morning of this Replit, and that's like right now you're watching Silicon Valley, and the tools that they are using, cutting edge. So I think this it's such an interesting time to be alive, specifically with the AI. And I was actually at South by Southwest last year. Are you familiar with that conference? Yeah. So, and they one of my tracks was AI. And I remember them, I got so excited because they talked about, there's a few things I got excited, that it's the era of the creative generalist. And one of the things was that with AI, they'd done tests at Harvard that they had seen an increase with engineers, developers, like up like around 20% when they used a Copilot type tool to help them. And the thing is that they had seen way better results in weaker developers, so people that weren't as good as the others, they caught up quite significantly. And I was like, this is going to change Africa. Like, this is going to change, like, because we've got this. The one thing I know about the Americans, they're extremely articulate, and the language and that forms part of the biases is the language is English, and they just speak it so well that they're able to sell us and tell us they're the best and that sort of stuff. We will have multiple languages and that sort of stuff. That now I feel with these tools, like, watch out, we're coming, sort of thing. I'm so excited about it.
True.
There's a massive dip in your timeline. I did see that, and it was around school or just before you turned 20.
Yeah, the world of business is sort of uncertain terrain, and I think in the late 80s, early 90s, my mum had remarried, so I had a stepdad, and they invested in businesses outside of KZN in Gauteng, and my mum, who'd been in business literally since the early 70s, had really built up a fair amount of capital, and took all of that and plowed it into a business in Gauteng and bought a house in Gauteng in Benoni to be specific. And it turned out that the manager who had been running those businesses, they bought it from somebody else, but kept the manager. He turned out to have been a compulsive gambler, and he gambled away, even then, a significant amount of money. I kid you not, it probably 30 years ago was already about a million rand. So you can imagine what that translates to. And it's the only money you have, and you were looking, and they were looking to scale up, you know, in a different sort of way. The net result of that is businesses obviously gambled the money away, couldn't recover it. He attempted to suicide. He didn't succeed, but what he did succeed in was to bankrupt them properly, and we lost everything, or let me say she, and together with my stepdad, lost absolutely everything they poured, you know, their hearts and souls into. And we lost even our home. I mean, we went from literally the security of having a home, and fortunately we hadn't detached completely from KZN, so we had to move back to KZN, regrouped under those circumstances. But you know, this is all happening when you're around about 18, 19, so you know what this is. You know, you're not like an 8-year-old, you know, with all due respect, but now you can tell that things have shifted, and it stayed like that for a number of years. But she literally then rebuilt the business, or they rebuilt the business again, and it coincided with the period where I was now leaving school and was getting ready. I'd been accepted at a number of institutions, tertiary institutions, but there was no money to go at that precise moment in time and to do what I wanted to study. So there was a lot of soul searching that went on, but not very long after that, I just kept chipping away at potential work opportunities or studying opportunities, and with the ability then to join organizations. And I was very lucky that by the time I was 23, I became aware of a scholarship to go and study in Germany by the German government, and that then brought me back onto the academic track, and I was very grateful for what the German government believed in me as a person and in us as a group. Because, you know, people say something is too good to be true, you know, or this can never happen. That was genuinely a too good to be true story. And I do say, if something bad can happen to you for no reason, then there's no barrier to something good happening to you for no reason. Because if something bad can happen to you for absolutely no reason, what stops something good happening to you as well for no reason? And that's exactly what happened to me. I went to Germany with a great organization, got a stipend as a student, got to be placed in work opportunities, all of that. And they paid for my flight back. You know, I think I didn't even pay to go there, come to think of it, you know. So if I told you that the German government wants to, you know, go and train you in Germany for a couple of years, and you're not going to pay anything, and you're going to get money, and you're going to just be okay. I mean, you think there's a catch, obviously, you know. Do I have to work at all for something? None of that. None of that. Absolutely none of it. And that has now embedded in me the belief that, you know, something good can generally happen for no reason. And sometimes too good to be true is tested, because something can be genuinely good and it's true. Or it's rare, I admit. Often it's laced with all sorts of shenanigans. But it can happen, and I'm living proof of it.
That's amazing. So I guess in the World Cup soccer, you're a Germany supporter.
Oh, Deutschland, Deutschland! I'm grateful to the country. I loved the people. I've always said that, and I had an opportunity to extend my stay there. Actually, I was offered. I eventually did my practicals with Siemens in Munich, and I remember my sort of line manager saying, "Well, if you finished your studies, and we'd be really happy to have you stay longer if you want." And I was very eager to get back to South Africa because I've always felt this is where I want to be, and this is where I can contribute and add value differently than I can in Germany. But if I ever were to make a call in another destination in Europe, for me to be Germany. A lot of people say, "Oh, Germans are this, Germans are that, and Germany is cold." Even other Europeans used to say, "Oh, Germany, it's cold there." You go to the UK, Germany, it is. But it's an incredible country. Yes, it had its challenges. I had definitely episodes that were shocking. I mean, blatant, vindictive, racist episodes that I'd never encountered in South Africa. But I also had extremely kind, generous, wonderful human beings that I met there. So you can't just write off people because a fringe, if I can be quite blunt.
Their past is not. Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of similarities in past. There's a huge pain body there that they still bear, and I think that. Some of the great philosophers and psychologists and great minds come from Germany. It is something interesting about it. I've been before, not for a long time, but I remember it was freezing. Getting there and it was freezing,
Yeah,
I kind of wondered how people decided that it was a good idea to live there, because they would have come from Africa, because we all came from Africa, and then we migrated up there, and maybe they came in summertime and they just didn't realize. But
it's beautiful in summer.
I've heard it's. I've seen pictures and stuff. Yeah, I've heard it's amazing. Yeah. Okay, I mean I love that take on it, like that you said with the optimism. So like sometimes something that sounds too good to be true can be true. It's such an optimistic view, and especially if you rationalized it, which is interesting because so you said because the opposite is also true. Sometimes there's just stuff can happen for no reason that's just negative.
Absolutely.
The world, we said this a few times on the podcast, but it seems like the universe gives you what you need to evolve. It doesn't give you what you want. And sometimes it's the tough stuff that builds you, and then you hope. If you have hope, maybe then that builds it. You used a word I love, fortunate, because people don't say luck. People say lucky. You get lucky and you can create your own luck, but that's like fortunate is such a beautiful word. And then you've mentioned your wife, so you never mentioned your biological father. He was not in the picture, as I understand.
I think my dad was probably out of the picture when I got to about 10, I think. I'm not too sure. But he then passed away in 1983. And I was still a kid as well then. But I remember the day my mum told us, the kids, that he died. And I just knew, even as a kid, that I would never see him again. It was quite a weighty thing to internalize. I just thought to myself, that means I'll never see him again. Albeit that they had already separated and we weren't living with him anymore. But I've got very sort of limited memories of him. What I do remember is that he loved, he loved the sort of the finer things, without being. He was limited, obviously, because in the 70s you couldn't splurge. But if he loved a music system, he would buy a B&O, Bang & Olufsen system. He would he wouldn't just settle for a really good local brand, he would find a way to get that. And he had a chef commando, and it was like his pride and joy. And then, then he had those, now what they look like, really laughable mercs, He also got into business. He used to work at Barter Shoes in Pinetown, and he was a cutter. He used to cut the leather strips, right? The leather into, making the shoes. I think
the panels.
The panels. And him and my mum, I'm led to believe, in the late 60s, became aware of white people selling businesses in the rural areas, like in Nongoma, in Geza, and places like that, And apparently there was this shop that, and my mum was a nurse, or she had, she became a nurse at King Edward, and he was working at Barter, and they took the plunge. They got into business, and my mum's never left business since starting then, and even after they'd separated, he stayed in business, and unfortunately he died quite young. I mean, he died at 44, but 44 then was like 75 now. He'd already
done so much.
Done so much, and he apparently was fairly introverted, and but a very sharp businessman, and I just wonder what our relationship would be like now. I mean, I'm much older than he was when he died, but apparently he was quite a switched on guy,
It's interesting because the risky question potentially that I went with there, but well, I've had it in previous sessions where it didn't go that well, but it was a sense of pride that I felt. Even when you mentioned your name, the given name to your grandfather. Did you ever meet your grandfather?
No, I never met him.
Okay, cool. So it's I noticed there, maybe that was my trigger to ask that question, but I can see that you're very proud of it, very proud of him. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when parents go through what I can call the misfortune of separation and divorce, you tend to gravitate to the parent that you spend a lot of time with and you get to know very deeply. But nothing's to say that if I spent a lot more time with him, I wouldn't have the same level of pride and admiration as I do for my mum, for him, notwithstanding his faults and flaws as a human being. And now, being a husband and a father, I completely get it. It's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah. And your mom is still around?
She's still around.
Not working anymore?
No, but she, she, without being biased here, I'm just going to tell you, I think she's one of the most remarkable people I've ever met, and for good reason. I've already mentioned she was able to, through all odds, honestly live an ambitious life. My mom comes from poverty. She comes from the rural parts of KZN, a place just outside Mduba, more specifically known as Stringli. Her parents were like nothing. They weren't educated or weren't privileged people, so she had to make do with the limited options she had. She became a nurse at King Edward. I think then you could become a nurse with a standard 8 or something like that. I
think women specifically, your path was, your options were nurse or teacher.
Yeah.
That's it. Good luck.
And she became a nurse. And I recall when I was already in primary, she went and finished off her matric. And after that, she then went on to get like 4 degrees, including being an admitted advocate in the High Court, And she was studying, all sorts of things. I mean, she's got an LLB, and this is from a person who saw value in education and who invested. My mum enrolled, I remember, for her B.Juris degree in her 50s. And as recently as a couple of years ago, and she's now in her 80s, she was really thinking of going to do her degree in theology, which would be like a 5th degree or something. I mean, you're like, hey, where do you get this energy and drive? But it's who she is. And she was the second of 15 kids. And her mom and dad, my grandparents, had 15 kids. And she literally, and they all admitted, she literally was brought up by her. She, at a young age, 6, 7, she was helping my gran deliver her siblings. And she literally looked after most of her siblings. So, she really had that black tax issue going for her on sort of the original version of it, not even a joke, and still managed to look after her family and build businesses. She says when she was still very young, she vowed never to ever earn a pension from government. And she says she was maybe 9 or 10. Although she didn't really know what it was, she said, I will never go and get pension money from government. She's now in her 80s, and God has been very good to her. She's never, and I'm not belittling those who do earn pension, and I think there's a role for pension, and there's reasons why people can earn pension. But that was one of her motivations, to be self-sustaining and look after herself and be able to take care of her life well into the old age. And she's been able to do that. She's traveled the world. She's educated the kids in good schools. She's owned premier assets, houses and cars and all of that. And this is from a person who could quite honestly have just continued in the rural path like most of her peers at the time, and just maybe sold a couple of things, and with all due respects, just not really fulfilled her potential. But she's been an inspiration, and I think that's why also I refuse to age in the literal sense, because she's a youthful 81-year-old. Youthful. I mean, she's all over the place. She drives herself, does this. She you have to pinch yourself, and you almost have to pinch her and tell her to just please, just be careful. You're not quite, 51 or 41, because she'll be on site and building this and going to the hardware store and getting that and driving this and driving that. And then she's going to Eswatini and going to Joburg, and she'll be back tomorrow evening. And like, hey, it's, but anyway, I think that's her sort of internal mechanism.
I mean, that would have fueled you, but I get this, the energy I get from you is very calm, very thoughtful. I don't say calculated, because thoughtful is the positive, like it is calculated. It is very, I get the intelligent, like you, making sure everything you've said, and like the pension statement, and then saying that it is not. I wouldn't have taken pension from that government. I wouldn't have wanted to take pension from that government when we were growing up. So that might have been a case that I thought about. That's maybe why she said it. I don't want anyone for anything from these people. But you had your disclaimer and your thoughtful. How do you compare yourself, that energy?
She's been an inspiration for the longest time, and she is she's a very strategic thinker. And my mom has taken positions in life where everybody, bar none, like we all have said, but how could you do this? How could you do that? And she says, it's the long game, and time has proven her to be correct, and you can imagine being a beacon of sort of success and hope, how there would have been instances where she would be abused by loved ones. And that happened. And we would be like, just this person, you must just, cut them off, And she says, no, it's just, but, the fact of the matter is they might this or might that, we can't then in the future ignore that, because we'll all be at the same wedding or the same funeral, or we'll be at the same this or the same that. And then she says it will work itself out over time, And she's quite a godly person, and faith has been very pivotal in sort of the last 40 years of her life, I would say, maybe 45 or even more. And she pushes everything towards God's grace, everything, even like, hey, but hang on, I mean, honestly, the fact that you bought 2 bottles of something instead of 1, I mean, it was a special. It wasn't really God's grace in the way you are apportioning it, we've got a spare one. No, it's God's grace. Like, oh, okay. But I remember you saying, oh, this is a good deal. 2 for the price of 1 is not a bad thing, but now it's, so she'll quickly sort of ascribe all of it. We don't have a problem with that because it's a positive way of looking at it. And I think what I've learned from her is that no matter how severe the punches of life, you must dust yourself off and keep going. And she's had a fair share. When she lost everything at that point in time, as I mentioned, when literally was swindled out of her life savings, what she rebuilt after that exceeded what she had lost, and had that been the height of her achievement and then the perpetual sort of downfall, I think most people would have understood, like, she was done under by life, just like, she had a terrible thing and too bad, but she didn't take it like that. And she didn't mind getting into like what would be perceived a sort of a lifestyle that is modest. Like, she said, I need to rebuild this. And if I buy a car, and this is a person now who had a house with double garages, like 4 garages plus 2 carports, a house from that environment, and multiple rooms. Like the house had probably 12 rooms or something, excluding the guest wing and things like that. Going from that and then saying, I need to rebuild the little I've kept behind, and I will not buy a car. I'm going to go to the taxi rank and catch a taxi to wherever I need to go to. And she was laughed at left, right, and center, like properly, not even. And she wouldn't have an issue with that. I mean, if you offered her a lift, great. If you didn't, she went to the taxi rank. And once again, she never saw it or thought of it as something that is only for a certain category of people. Anybody can be in that environment. And she used to say, everybody, taxis are there for everyone. It's not not the preserve of the underwhelming people and so on and so forth. So it's been a great lesson that it never be so proud and so arrogant as to think that certain things are beneath you. If the moment calls for you to eat dry bread without any toppings, then the moment calls for that. That's what you must do. And I've taken that because I've also now had my episodes of that.
What's that? Pride comes before the fall. Huh?
Yeah.
So are you familiar with this poem? You made me think of it now. If.
It's a brilliant poem.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, I'm sure I can't read it. I get triggered by that, but I absolutely love it. I read it once a month in general, but I won't read it. I read it now for our listeners and that. I loved your what you said about going back. If you were to go back in time and tell yourself, it was tell yourself something. It was very different. I use the example like if I went back in time, I'd just tell myself breathe, meditate, or buy more Bitcoin as a joke. But like, do you want to say what your one was?
Keep going. Everybody's just trying to figure it out. So don't be intimidated by others' seeming easiness and success. They're all just trying to figure it out. And sometimes when you are young or new to an environment, you're so intimidated by what you're looking at that you think, oh, these are special beings who must have like additional arms and legs, and they have more hours in the day than the rest of us. But the truth of the matter, if I went back to my younger self, I would tell my younger self to just keep it in perspective. Everyone is just trying to figure it out. No matter how easy they're making it look, we're all more or less in the same boat. And I wouldn't be intimidated by sort of the bright, shiny, glitzy, glamorous titles and gizmos and toys. Nah, I wouldn't.
Okay. No, I love that. And then to transition to that quote, because we bring it forward, I love that bit because it's like we're all figuring it out.
Yeah.
Like no one knows what they're doing. Yeah.
And most of us don't want to admit that we're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
We pretend we've got it all buttoned down and we know exactly what we're doing. Nah.
Yeah, I love that. And then this quote I've never seen before. So that's one of the things I love about this show is like, is again, obviously we talked about this as a sampling, like you get to experience what a podcast is like, but I love a quote guy. I've got about 3 quotes listed up for this conversation, just on the indifference and AI and stuff like that and being the opposite. We'll get there. But this quote I loved because I'd never heard of it before, and that the guest brings quotes, so I just don't have to go and look for them. But why is this important to you? Because it was fight the enemy you have, not the enemy you want.
I mean, that's my life. That's basically who I am. If you want to summarize me in a nutshell as to who I am, I have always been a person who, for whatever reason, has preferred to look at reality as it is, as opposed to what I wish or want it to be. I've always looked at, as a kid even, and I remember, just going back to my story in Germany, some of my fellow South Africans left. They couldn't handle it. It was just too much. It was too this and too that. And I remember an older sort of colleague saying to me, oh, you, because I was the youngest of the group, by the way. Everybody else I went with was older than me. I was the youngest. He says, you, the good thing about you is you're a survivor, you know. And I never saw myself as a survivor. I thought I was just being normal. But I could see, later when I reflected on it, I could see why she said that. Because whatever we were thrown, for me was, this is it, you know, let's just get on with it. You know, if we were told now, no, you need to move now to another town or city, even though we just gotten there and we were under the impression we'd be there for a long period of time, but now plans have changed. I packed my bags and didn't whinge and moan and no, just get on with it, you know. And that's why I think a lot of people at the time couldn't adjust, you know, like, why is this, why is that? So my view that you must fight the enemy you have, not the enemy you want, encapsulates what even I believe in now as a 50-something-year-old, that you must see reality for what it is. To be wishing that it was something else and all that is actually, it's using extremely precious resources and it's occupying your bandwidth in a way that is not really productive. What you can do is you can recognize, and this is what I believe in, everybody, essentially, if you said to me, what advice would you give to humanity? I would give them 2 lines. First one, you must recognize the season you are in. That's the first thing. You must recognize the season you are in. The second thing would be prepare for the next season. Whichever season you're in. Those would be the only 2 things I'd say to humanity. Recognize the season you're in and prepare for the next season. I've always looked at it like that. So, and that ties into that quote, fight the enemy you have, not the enemy you want. Because illusions are what hold us back and creates then a whole lot of anxiety and depression and trauma and this and that and you know, life is this, life is what it is. You don't choose where you are born, to whom you are born, where you are born. You know, you don't even choose what you are born. You know, so you have no say in the biology of your being, in the geography of your being, in the history of your being. None of it. Even the economics of your being. You just, boom, that's your lot. Now, to sit there and wallow in all sorts of thought processes about, oh man, I should have been born 300 years ago, or I should have been born 200 years into the future. I mean, that is just aimless for me. I'm not saying it applies to everyone. And, you know, if I had been born taller, or if I'd been born white, or if I'd been born black or born maroon, not for me, you know. So it's about, this is your lot. This is the season you're in. How do you prepare for the next season? Because seasons are not necessarily lifespans. They are episodes in your life. You know, there are episodes in your life, and an episode in your life can be a minute, can be a year, can be a lifetime. But whatever it is, recognize the season you're in and prepare. And if you really feel strongly towards ensuring the season to come is better, is more conducive to you, prepare for it, like properly. Whilst you are in this season, you don't wait for the next season to start, you know, piano beating the next season. You prepare in this one with the little you have, and sometimes the lot you have. But I've always been as they say, a person who names illusions. My family actually has a nickname for me. I've got so many names. At school, I used to be known as Spade, because I used to call a spade. And I didn't even know. This nickname came about, you know, through some junior calling me Spade. Like, who's this lighty calling? And it turned out he was calling me, and I was quite like taken aback. Hey, why are you calling me that? Then he eventually said, well, everybody here calls you Spade. I'm like, why? And then because you call a spade a spade. So, and this was as a teenager. My family now calls me Frank. Because they say when I get going, I'm always like, you know, to be quite frank, or frankly speaking, I'm always like, and I wasn't even aware of it. And they brought it to my attention. So clearly there's this common behavior that I've had, you know, for a very long time to just recognize the season I'm in. And I think I've had to learn to be patient with myself and others who are not recognizing the seasons they're in. I should be very frustrated by people who were like, you know, but this, like, I'm thinking to myself and to them, but hey, dude, you can wish to be in Paris all you want. You're not in Paris. You're here in Glenwood, you know. You can get to Paris, but right now, Glenwood needs this, that, and the other. Stop talking about Paris. As when I was in Germany, you know, I'd be in the remote part of Germany. I wasn't at home. I was there, wherever there was, and I just had to deal with that, you know. And it can be quite clinical, and I think for the longest time it came across as very German and very clinical. And you haven't gone to Germany and then come back with that mindset. It was like, oh, this one is very like almost sterile, you know. But it wasn't that. It predates Germany.
There's a few things that have come up there while you're speaking. It's wherever you are, be there. And then we work with these 4 A's, and it starts with awareness, then it's acceptance, then it's action. So once you're aware of whatever it is, it can be anything, but like once you're aware of it, you have to accept, you have to step, like that's it. Because if you don't accept it, you're stuck in an illusion, like you said. So you accept it, and then you decide what to do next. So we do this, so that's the action. So we'll do one word at the beginning of the day in our stand-up, and it's like one word. It's not good or bad, thinking makes it so, but what is the emotional, how are you feeling right now at this moment in time? And then, because if someone says they're anxious, you don't have to stay there. You just have to be aware of it, and then you can apply, go for a walk, do something, like stand up, let's go do some breathing exercises. But anxious, and then the last day is adherence. So it's looping. It's the loop, like presence.
I like that. I like that.
But it's exactly what you were saying. And then there was the other poem that came up. I don't know why it's poems today, but self-pity, D.H. Lawrence. Are you familiar with self-pity?
No, I'm not.
Have I mentioned self-pity before on the poem? No. Okay, so self-pity. I never saw a wild thing sorry for itself. A small bird will fall frozen from a bough without ever feeling sorry for itself.
Wow, sure.
So like a wild thing, like that's they roll with the punches.
That's very powerful.
Yeah, so it seems like you roll with the punches, and you got that from your mother, I imagine. Like that's one of the people you got it from, your parents. But yeah, I don't want to get. I want to get stuck. I want to get into AI with you at some stage.
No problem.
But I think the next sort of part to get to is to look at the ad that you put forward, and it's this Alan Gray. It's called Time Flies.
Nog net 5 slaapies voor je verjaar, my engeltjie.
May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars and climb on every wall. May you stay.
Yes.
Forever young.
We had someone in the from experience.
Sure.
That's cool, man.
That's beautiful, huh? Yeah, it is beautiful. I love this last line. This line is, time is valuable, make it count. So why did you pick that ad?
You know, that ad is extremely, firstly, it relates to the realization by the mum who, when she was the kid, was forever attempting to escape reality. And with the benefit of hindsight, she recognizes that the value of experiences is being in the moment of the experience, not in projecting into a future state, which is what this ad is showing. You know, she's a kid who can't get into a certain ride because of a height. So she projects by this sort of channel or tunnel into the future of now being taller and missing out, you know, the benefits of being whatever height she is at that point in time. She doesn't encourage her child to escape reality. She actually discourages the child to remain present in the moment. And that's why it ends off with the singing and the dancing that happens there. And it ties back to what I keep saying, that you must recognize the season you are in and prepare for the next one. So this ad, it does both. It presents the typical behavior that I think most of us have in always looking at tomorrow and the future and next next appointment, and we keep missing the today and the now and the here and the, all these little things that really are the only things we have. And it's not a long time. There's a stat I didn't know until I came across it. I think you have like 4,000 weekends in your life, if you're going to live till the age of 80, which is the average lifespan. 4,000 weekends is not a lot. It's not a lot. I think if that number if the radio stations kept announcing that every Friday afternoon, I think you would make better use of your weekends. And I think we sort of forget the need to just embrace the here and now. And I know it's tough, and I know it can be depressing, I know it can be difficult and all those sorts of things. But we're the lucky ones there. Out of the UN says there's been like, of all the people that could have been born, which is like 110 billion, there's 8 billion people on this planet. So we're the lucky, we're the ones who made it here, who saw this thing called life, And maybe, I don't know. I say 8 billion, that's the current number. It's not the total people who've existed. But there's significantly a lot more people who could have lived who never lived. So even if my maths is out,
Yeah, the chances of you being born is trillion. It's just ridiculous.
Insane.
It's an absolute gift.
Yeah. And there's a part of us that takes that, I think, for granted, to be quite honest. And I think we don't recognize, and kids, if you got kids, they grow up so quickly. We want them to be older and this and that, but when they're older, if you honest yourself, you yearn for those stages when they were kids and so on. And when you were a kid, you wanted to be older and out the house and doing things.
You wish.
I don't even know I don't know where we're going to be honest. I don't know what this urgency is. I don't know what's this destination that we so urgently need to get to. I'm not quite sure. I haven't figured it out, but whatever it is, I don't think it's worth more than actually appreciating the present. And that's why that advert is so important to me, because it speaks to me on many, many levels.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Have you heard of Tim Urban?
No.
So he's I think a journalist and a writer, and his TED Talk is one of the most popular. It was top 3 at one stage, I think. I don't know if it still is, but he does, and it's about the one that's popular. TED Talk is about the anxiety monster or the urgency and planning, like how we procrastination. It's all about procrastination and that sort of thing. And he also has this a very popular blog and newsletter and writing that he does. And one of the things I think they sell or you can get on site is a chart for your door, and it's 90 rows of 52 blocks. And you get to color it in because 52 weeks in a year and 90 rows. And you can do that exercise and see where you are in the greater scheme of things. Maybe you should get the 105 one from the AI we talked about earlier. But and then he talks about the numbers, the statistics, and this is, again, like you said, it can be depressing, but there's also a flip side of it. Like, you got to think of, if you're an optimist, you must think of the glass is always half full until it's full, and then you get to drink again. But the numbers were that you spend 90, it's like in the 90s percentage of your life with your parents before the age of 18, and then the 4-5%, so that your kids now up until they're 18, that's 95% of the time you will spend with them is done in that, and then it's over. I can probably calculate the number of weekends I've got left with my mom, or how many summers. yeah, she's 76. I can do the math now, and I can say, and that makes, that's difficult to like say, wow, that's so little, but it also puts an imperative to when you there, be present, put the phone away, just listen to what she's saying.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's
So,
exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do believe that the AI can sort out a lot of issues, and I get excited about it, especially this time. I watched Graduation after the couple months after GPT had just launched, gone public, and I remember looking at these kids coming into the world, like to the professional world, and I was just like, I was so pumped for them. I was just like, we're at ground zero, guys. Like, they can catch up so quickly, and they can get it. We've got to obviously, and you can speak to this, unfortunately sometimes when these things happen, like the future's here, there's that thing, the future's here, it's just not evenly distributed. And it can amplify the biases, and we've got to be very aware of that. Language is one thing. There's a code bias movie I recommend to my team on Netflix that talks about like these LLMs and that sort of stuff. They generally train in English. English is only one language. Some things can't be translated from German, from our native languages here that you can't translate. There is no English for it. So that those models can't communicate on that. And they are a way of commercializing, as I understand it, IQ. And we know that there are different Qs. We talk about AQ as adaptive quotient, as EQ as your emotional quotient, and that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think one of the things, touching on the EQ part of it, that's interesting. In the talk, you've got a few talks that you do, you're a public speaker, and the quote that I had said I'm going to get to earlier was about indifference. And so you speak about indifference over ignorance, and how you think the shift in framing could help us reshape AI ethics and conversations. You want to touch on that at all?
Yeah, I think, I've also got a very recent article I wrote on, and the title of it was, "The Opposite of Love is Not Hate, It's Indifference." And that I believe in very strongly. I think that, hate in itself, and hate is an expensive emotion. It requires a lot of fuel to keep hating something or someone. And I think that when something is hated, as bad as it is, there's a path to a better future where hate is involved. It's worse when there's no hate but indifference, because indifference requires very little energy to sustain.
And you don't care, like it's literally, I don't want.
It's literally, I couldn't give. And that, like you're not even thinking, you don't care whether the person is on the bus, off the bus, in the bus, under the bus. It makes no difference to you. If you care whether the person is on the bus, you got to keep watching each bus. Are they on the bus? If they shouldn't be on the bus. And it's a lot of effort and energy to keep ensuring somebody's not on the bus that you don't want on the bus. But if you couldn't be bothered whether they're on the bus or under the bus or around the bus or near the bus, that particular level of detachment can last a lot longer than hate. And I think that's the one that I shudder when I think about what AI, unless we are mindful of it, will be able to embed within us. We've already got behaviors as people, as humans, that are underpinned, if we, and let me be frank, because that's my nickname, if we are frank about it, we've got behaviors that are being sustained by indifference. And top of that pile would be the economic disparity globally. If we cared as humans about each other, there wouldn't be this level of economic disparity. And it certainly wouldn't be tolerated the way we tolerate it. How we tolerate it is we use euphemisms and we sugarcoat things. We call we call the same thing different things just to make ourselves feel better, At the heart of it, you strip away everything. It's not even malice. It's just indifference. The world is a lot the way it is in terms of, there's a lot good in the world. There's a lot of positivity in the world. And there's a lot that's not right as well. And the lot that's not right, more often than not, is not because people don't know what to do, or people have run out of time, or people even lack the resources. What's lacking is the care, C-A-R-E. That's often what lacks, that creates then the systemic, perpetual pit that we as humans put ourselves in. And I think if we don't clean up that swamp, we're going to transfer that energy to AI, and then God help us all. Because a machine that accepts that as a setting is curtains for humans. It's curtains because there'll be there's no bouncing back from that. Once the algorithm locks in that there is no reward for caring, I think you can pull the plug.
Yeah, because it'll just amplifies everything.
I think you can pull the plug.
The thing that I get from when you say that indifference and the difference in hatred, you're still invested.
Exactly.
That's the words invested.
Yes.
I get
Yes.
And I actually, the first time I heard that, now it's a quote that you've got that you've taken there. I forget who says it, but we can have it in the show notes. The first time I heard it was from a song, The Lumineers, called Stubborn Love. And again, we'll have a link to this. And it's better to feel pain than nothing at all. The opposite of love's indifference. So pay attention now. I'm going to send you that song because it's literally what you've been saying.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things in your talk you spoke about, and you can correct me on the numbers now, but like how many there's 110 tons of food that get produced by the world, and we only need 90. So why are there people starving? What is that?
I mean, that's like a pain point, this topic of, amongst many other things, I'm also a food justice advocate. And one of the reasons I got into food justice was what I saw in a life that I had as a commercial farmer. We were neighboring a compost site, and there would be truckloads of fruit and veg dumped in order to be turned into manure and compost, this, that, and the other. And with each truck delivery in the beginning, there'd be hordes of people with empty buckets and dishes and whatever you can think of as a container, rushing to quickly get to the dump and scavenge and try and recover as much of the cabbages or carrots or butternut or whatever it was that was being dumped. And that happened for quite a while. I actually then went to see what they were scavenging because I could see the people walking past our gate and going to the dump, but I actually went to see there. And it was, I wasn't the same person before and after that site. I mean, yes, it was terrible that people were walking and people were hungry, but to see what literally on our collective watch was happening was just too much. We had kids. I mean, there were kids literally pushing and shoving each other, digging through, waste to try and get this newly dumped cabbage or butternut or carrot or whatever. And some of the packaging, when the deliveries were made, you could see that there were significant amounts of those items that were perfectly edible, if I can be honest about it. Yes, there'd be a sack of whatever it is, say cabbages, and you could see, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see a rotten cabbage from a non-rotten cabbage or butternuts and so on and so forth. And even the sort of, and I use dignity in inverted commas, even the dignity of saying to people, okay, guys, take before we throw into the rubbish dump and mix it with all the waste. I think that would have still been better, but no, that wasn't even afforded to people. And I get it. I know why it wasn't, because it's a health risk, and the owner of the site can't do this, can't do that. I mean, there's a whole lot of policies and bureaucracy that goes with how you manage that kind of waste. But the long and short of it is the amount of food that we waste, right? We currently, as day in and day out as humans on this planet, we produce enough food to feed approximately 10 billion people, right? And yet there are 8 billion, more or less, citizens. Now these numbers, don't shoot me if I'm 8.1 billion or 10 point something billion, but there's a huge gap between the amount of food that is produced and the amount of people that are available to consume it. And yet 9 million, with an M, people die each year from starvation and hunger-related causes. That tells me, at the heart of it, we really don't care. We will justify it and use all sorts of language. No, commercials don't work. You can't give away food, this, that, and whatever reason we want to create. At the end of the day, people are dying when there's food available. And the reason why that food isn't availed is for commercial reasons, not logistics. It's not because we can't get the food there, or the food is... and now the vast majority of it, by the way, is vegetables and fruit. I mean, it's fruit and vegetables. So it's not, we're not talking about ultra-processed stuff that sits on shelves for years anyway. We're talking about food, real food, that is being thrown away, wasted. And a large part of that happens, a big part of it happens at the source, in terms of at the farm, right, the waste, and also happens in the kitchen. So consumers are also throwing away perfectly good food. And that's why we took on then the petition to try and educate people on understanding expiry date labels. So when you see a label, you must understand it. Don't think you know it, which is the problem. You see a date, it says sell by, or best before by, or use by. Most people have no clue what those dates mean. They think they do, though. Most people think they understand what those dates actually imply. But more often than not, I can almost guarantee you, and you can randomly do this, you'll be lucky if you get a hit of 1 in 5 who knows what they're talking about. Most people have no clue what those dates mean, including merchandisers in stores, because I've gone through to some stores and I've asked merchandisers, people who actually pack the shelves, what do these dates mean? They think, and then they'll say, no, this means you can't eat this thing by this, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then, I mean, sometimes I just resign myself, in despair and walk away. And sometimes I would attempt to encourage people to educate themselves. And government has got very precise definitions of these dates. So these are not my interpretations. It's not what I think these dates mean. It's what you will find if you go and you look at government policy, what these dates mean. Sell-by is not orientated to the consumer. It's orientated to the retailers and the wholesalers. It's their date of when that stock should be rotated, or whatever the case may be around that item. It's not an orientation that is meant to be consumed. I shouldn't use the word consumed. That should be understood or adopted by the purchaser or the man in the street or, the consumer. That is sell-by. best before is also highly misunderstood. People think they understand what best before means. Best before has got nothing to do with whether that food is safe to eat or not. It's used by, it's got nothing to do with the safety of the food. Best before is telling you about the optimal quality window. It's got nothing, it doesn't tell you when this food's going to expire. So if you see something and it says best before, it's saying if you want the best of that item, you must have it on or before that date, whatever that date is. But if you have a peach and you put it in your basket in the kitchen, and that peach, for argument's sake, ripens in 7 days, and on the 8th day it goes rotten, right? That peach is fully ripe on the 7th day and it's rotten on the 8th. You can start eating it, say, argument's sake, on the 4th day. But the juiciest, firmest period is on the 5th day. Now, as an example, that would be your best before date. After the 5th, it's still juicy, but it's starting to get mushy and soft on the 6th. On the 7th day, it's now on its last legs, and on the 8th day, it should be in the bin. That's not how people understand best before. People look at it, 5th. If I haven't eaten this thing on the 5th, which is the optimal date to have that peach, on the 6th day, which is the day after the best window, they throw it away. And reconciling that with starving kids and millions dying is just, it's not on. It's simply not on. That's the best before. Use by is you should not and you cannot eat or consume that item after that day. That's the real date, use by. Very little is understood by use by. People see use by, but if you look carefully enough, most of your dairy products, your milk, your cheeses, and your eggs, they'll often have use by. But retailers have been quite sneaky because there's a loophole. They'll use it on the items they really know that they should be walking a very fine line on. But they don't use by, which is now the mandated date of when you shouldn't consume that item. They typically lean on the other two ambiguous ones, best before and sell by, because those generate a level of anxiety which drives then the need to dispose and replenish before time. Because if you see best before and you're thinking, oh, it's gone before, after the best before, it should go in the bin. But that's the wrong date. It's the wrong date to start off with. The right date of that peach, the example I used, would have been the 7th, not the 5th. Because after the 7th, the thing is fraught, and I'm not advocating people eating rotten food. But there's a loophole being exploited that drives artificial scarcity, which then generates the sales and resales, because you're dumping and restocking and dumping and restocking. And I think we're missing a trick, because if everybody was being well fed, then you can afford to be as clinical with your dates as you want. Like you want to build in a buffer. And all of these dates have got buffers, by the way, including use by. They all have buffers. It's not like at 12 o'clock that night, if you eat at 1 minute past 12, you're going to die. It's the do not use past that date, but 1 minute past that date is not going to put you into the grave. And then what I find of late are all these stories emerging. 36 kids hospitalized in this province due to food poisoning. 40 kids in that province. There's quite a few of those stories you see. More often than not, if you actually investigate what has gone on there, it's seldom food that is the cause, as in the food has now expired. It is what has been used around the food, pesticides, insecticides, and so on. Whether they're now being used where the food is being stored, like to kill rats and mice, or the food itself has been contaminated in the process with chemicals. But, for the better part of humanity, and you can take a guess as to how old humans are, we didn't have dates on food up until the middle of the 20th century at the scale actually towards the end of the 20th century. I mean, I remember growing up, the first time I saw a expiry date label on any food item was in the UK, and it was in the late 80s. And I remember when I came back to South Africa, then I started seeing it on milk and eggs. Then the other stuff was still pretty silent. But now, even a bottle of water has got a best before. Which part of that water bottle is best before? Because it's one or the other. Either recyclable plastic, which is supposed to degrade quickly, takes 100 years to degrade. Okay? Or water, which is billions of years old. So the water certainly can't be getting stale, or the water can't be getting sort of old. The water is already old. Every drop of water we drink is billions of years old. So it can't be the water. If it's the plastic, and the plastic is now suddenly got a shelf life of 2 months, and I hear the arguments, the sunlight reacts on the plastic and the chemicals and so on and so forth. Something is not, the maths is not mathing there.
That I've always wondered about.
Yeah,
like
the maths
that
is
I've
not mathing.
always wondered about who paid for those studies. Like,
the maths is
so
not
you're
mathing.
saying this is very interesting because I'm one of the 4 out of the 5. Thank you for explaining that. So I was today years old when I realized the difference, because it's in plain English, but that I didn't realize that they were using it differently like that. My wife will benefit from this, and
You know that the Consumer Protection Act actually calls for consumers to understand what labels mean, but this is seemingly not being enforced, and I don't know why. I'm battling to understand why. Why are we not educating the public to understand fully what these date labels mean? And I think I have the answer as to why, but it's not right. Because you should throw away knowing full well that there's nothing wrong with this thing. Then you're well within your rights. But don't throw it away believing that it's no longer safe to eat.
Well, they've outsourced that if it's the mandate of the consumer, but they're not educated. Like you've just communicated it now. Now this gets put on YouTube and Spotify and Apple and democratized so everyone has access to this information. But the communication it needs frequency of message. You need to hear it over and over again and that sort of stuff for it to actually land, right? There's a whole bunch of different things in comms, but like, so they're not they're not taking the step, and maybe it's an indifference thing that's the darkest I can go in it. They actually don't care. It sounds like it's actually marketing now. The guys are using it as a scarcity tactic. So like, you need to buy this before, you need to have that before, or you need to consume this before, otherwise get rid of it and get some more because you're going to go restock. Yeah. So they're wasting it. So it's actually tactical by the merchant, not the merchandiser, the producer, the manufacturers, the brands, on label. I was today years old when I learned that. So thank you.
Yeah,
it's incredible. It's something that people need to know about for sure. I mean, did you know those things? Am I the only one?
Yeah, I've been a bit of a stickler about it. I've always seen the sell-by date and seeing people say, well, we can't buy that now. It's like, no, you can buy it now and you can consume it safely. Like, there's a buffer built into this. And then I've never really been one for expiration dates. If it looks good, I'm going to chow it.
Yeah, I tested. I'll be honest, but that's more of a me thing. I'm like, but I didn't know that there were 3 different, and they were used. They're being used intentionally.
They're trying to drop sell-by because I think even government recognizes it's such a arbitrary, vague thing that it's of little to no use to the consumer. So the new, I think it's been promulgated, the act, but I don't think it's been signed off by. I'm not too sure where it's at, but you know, we sent a petition to the government departments to attend to this, and to SABS, and we sent one also to the Consumer Council, and we basically have the recommendation that there should be one label, and it should say safe to eat until. Nobody is confused there. Safe to eat until. There's no confusion. There's no guessing as to what this thing, maybe the dates, and there's safe to eat until. That's it. All these sell-by, these are all just gymnastics, and they're all nuances of semantics that really, to be very honest, suit the retailers and wholesalers down to a T.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and you know that I was making the point about food. We didn't have labels for the better part of humanity's existence, right? And obviously, that's not a great thing to be eating rotten food or unsafe food, and I'm not promoting that at all. But what I'm saying is we used our common sense, and I don't know whether that's expired. Because if the thing's rotten, don't eat it. You don't need a label to tell you this thing's rotten, or it's fraught, or it tastes bad. I grew up in the rural parts of KZN, right? Notwithstanding the fact that I also had exposure to sort of the elite schools and so on. I don't have a single family member or know of any single family member or any extended family that ever died from expiry food. I know of family members who've died from malnutrition. I don't know if that lands, but the point is, at the end of the day, this is a real threat. Food safety is important, but it's not the only act that's around. There's also deaths. People are dying from starvation, malnutrition. Kids are... You know that in South Africa, the number is approximately 30% of kids under 5 suffer from malnutrition. That cannot be excused. You can't excuse that. And let alone the stunting that goes with it and so on and so forth. And we also are supposedly a food secure country, which is a misnomer. I mean, the food is in the stores, it's there, but accessing food makes it secure. You're seeing food. You can't just say, well, we are food secure because we produce more than we consume. That's a very warped way of balancing that equation. We're not, in my view, a food secure country at all. Yes, on paper, in theory, we are food secure in the technical definition, but many South Africans go to bed without having a clue where their next meal is going to come from. And they then resort to the unhealthy, in inverted commas, cheap diets that drive diabetes, that push up our hospital bills, and so we're paying for it anyway. We're paying for this, but we're just paying for it differently.
Yeah, we've been fortunate, Luke and I have been fortunate to work with Do More Foundation. And one of the things that they target is children getting food. And because it's so important to develop your brain, if you don't get it, it's like under 6, I think, 5 years old, if you haven't had that, you're done. You're done. It's done.
That's it. Yeah.
So you absolutely have to get that right to be able to give people a chance. So like they can have a life.
Yeah, it's not just about calories. It's also the quality of nutrition,
I was chatting with, we were working with one of the clients, and they were talking about the state of our maize meal and how our corn which is sold to the majority of the population. But the part of the corn that during the processing of the food, the part of the corn that is the most nutritious and has the protein and the fats is that little tiny piece at the bottom of the corn where it connects to the husk, but that gets cut off in the processing. So when they process in the corn, you cut off the biggest part of the corn off the cob. That gets processed into food and sold and told that it's highly nutritious. But the nutrients are actually just thrown to the pigs, which is very interesting. And it's about quality of food, and it's about making, maybe we need to look at how we process our food.
It starts with caring, though, Luke.
Yeah.
Everything starts goes
yeah.
back to caring. Just
Completely.
care enough to say, I mean, would I want my loved one eating this or eating that, or or experiencing this or experiencing that,
But it's hard for a company to care when they're driven by a board who's driven by the bottom line.
Exactly.
So it's like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
If the government mandates it, like, is hard enough. It sounds like you say something that I find very interesting. Is food is identity. So the question that the team have got for you was that how might AI preserve that instead of erasing it? How, like, we've got these amazing tools and we can work out how to distribute it. Like, we can do the comms, but we need to do the comms. But how's AI? I get so excited about it because it's this tool, but there's still the stuff happening right now. How do we? Yeah.
Obviously, when I refer to AI, I'm talking about the systemization of code and algorithms in society, right? So how are we embedding code in society? And the code we embed must carry our values. If our values is indifference or profit at all costs, AI is not going to help us achieve now an equitable, just, and flourishing nation, because it's not coded for that. It's coded for shareholder returns at maximum peak.
Exactly.
So AI is going to mirror our values back to us. So if we are warped in our value system, we can't expect AI to solve that. We must solve it. People must solve that, not AI.
I love what you said, sorry, Luke, you're going to jump in, but I love what you said. Like, everyone's so scared of AI, but people should be scared of people starving to death.
Yeah.
Like that, so don't worry about it.
It's easy to defer to AI. I mean,
the
talk I did at the Food Indaba was, we have this AI phobia, AI this, AI that. You know what? Even if you parked AI, there's a lot we have to sort out. We have to clean house just as people before we start worrying about AI, because we almost like rushing through our flaws and our weaknesses to AI and having now we're deferring attention to where it should be going, which is caring. I know it sounds cheesy and it sounds like, this is just some softy, weak thing. It's in our best interest to care. A caring society makes your life better. You're not just caring because you this altruistic glossy-eyed innocent buck. A well-fed society that is flourishing is a safe society for you. So it's not even like you're just doing it because it's a good thing to do and you can brag about it. You can be selfish about caring, because the more people prosper, other people prosper, the safer it is for you. And it's as simple as that, the way I see it.
100%.
Yeah, again, I've mentioned that EO before, and they have this. We measure three things when we meet monthly in our forum, and it's a global organization. There are different forums and there are different chapters and that sort of thing. But the three, I've started with the three things and I roll it out to as many people as I can, and it's business or career, and personal and family. And families, like, so that's what you rate. You do like an net promoter score on that monthly. I do a net promoter score actually with my wife daily. Yeah, like we do.
Wow.
We check on how's the experience.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so how's the experience? Like, so if you were taken out of the simulation right now and someone was going in there like 0 to 10, should I go? How is it? That's the net promoter score. Wow. And then you're aware, and then you can act, and you can accept, and you can action, and you can adhere and stuff like that. But that family bit that they've got, the one that I mentioned at the end was our family. They've got a fourth tenet. Like, they've actually got a fourth tenet, which is community. So like, what are you doing in your community? And I think that it's great. It's amazing. I haven't got there yet. I'm figuring out how to do it, and we're figuring out as a business what non-profits we focus with and give our energy and our gifts to, and work with. But that community is an extension of family. That's what it is. So it could just be called family, but it's better that you communicate it as a community.
Exactly.
But it is just family, because if you help the people around, it's good for you. Like you've just said, really good for you that the people are not starving, because they're less likely, to do a lot of things and a lot less desperate, and less and more secure for people around you is more secure for you, and that's
100%.
Yeah,
and that's
I love
what
that.
gets me with sort of this hard steel capitalist mindset that it's about returns, shareholder. The safest return you can ever have is not being under threat that your lot is at risk, if you know what I mean. So the more you can safeguard and fortify your well-being externally, the less energy you have, the more energy you have of working on yourself internally, because you're not worried about waking up tomorrow and it's all a mess, whatever the mess looks like, So I think capitalists typically miss the trick that it's in everyone's best interest. And by the way, I mean, I've been accused of being a capitalist commie or a commie capitalist, and I embrace both hats, because I don't mind the profit, I must be honest. I enjoy a good profit like the next person. So I'm not shooting down capitalism. And by the way, they say it's the worst system until you look at all the others. Then you quickly realize that it's a terrible system, but the others I think are even worse.
It's the best we have.
Yeah. So I say this with that disclaimer that I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I am saying that you do need conscious capitalism. You can't be this zombie capitalist, which is what we currently have. We have these zombie capitalists, and they're making the world unsafe, not just for themselves, but for everybody else. Everyone wants to prosper and flourish, and we can't do that and make money and be safe. And this, it just means you, instead of having a 50-foot yacht, you have a 30-foot yacht. I mean, for goodness sake, if that matters so much, instead of having 17 cars, I mean, what are you going to do with 17 cars? You can have 7 cars or 10 cars. I mean, everything can be trimmed. And it seems like trimming is like a swear word. It's like, oh, no, this now you're infringing on my personal right. But if everybody's got more than 2 cars, then maybe your 20 cars isn't such a problem. But when everyone's got no cars, maybe even your 5 cars is a problem. That's the simpler.
Interesting anecdote. I heard this one actually on a podcast recently, and it was again, I don't know how true this is. It was just it was relayed in what I was listening to, and they said that there was an interaction between Elon Musk and Bill Gates at one stage at an event or a gala or something, whatever it was, and that Elon approached. As I understand it, again, it's probably online. You guys can go check that out. This is out there. Elon approached Bill Gates, and he said, like, they knew each other. Obviously, Bill Gates is the godfather, and Elon's like still like a whippersnapper, actually, in comparison to Bill Gates. But even though he's worth more and all that sort of stuff on the paper, I guess. But he said, Bill, I've been told that you've shorted stock. You've shorted Tesla's stock. And why would you do that? And Bill Gates said, I'm saying Bill like I know the guy, but Bill Gates says, yeah, well, it's a financial decision. My financial advisors, that I don't even deal with it, Elon. Like, it's just like they're going to make more money if they can see that they think the Tesla stock or whatever stock it is overpriced, and that's the way to make more money. And Elon, that kind of snapped back. He's like, what are you going to do with more money? Like, what do you want with more money? Like, we want to go to Mars. Like, let's go. Like, what? And he just stormed off, and then they don't talk anymore.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know how much of an urban legend that is, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
It's true. Like, what are you going to do with more money? What are you going to do more yachts, more cars? It doesn't matter. Like, just do, like, we want to do other stuff. Like, there's so much cool stuff we can do. Is there anything?
Yeah, I think AI, the role AI can play is that it can do both. AI can be the force multiplier of good. It can amplify abundance, or it can amplify scarcity and sheer desperation and inequity. So how we code, handle, embed AI is going to be a reflection of us as people and our values. And I think if we're not careful, our track record is not too great. If we're not careful, we're going to carry over this baggage of just headless chicken like accumulation of wealth. I mean, you can only sleep on one bed at a time, honestly. Even if you've got 50 houses, you can't sleep on all of them at the same time. So there's a point where it's absurd. The whole thing is just insane, honestly. But in saying that, it doesn't mean people should not aspire to fulfill whatever it is that they seek to aspire and to achieve as individuals. And we're not the same. I mean, some people are driven by the safety of knowing that they can just get on a plane and go to their villa in Spain, or go to their house in the US or Greece, or stay in Camps Bay, whatever. That's fine. I mean, I'm not rubbishing that. But what I'm saying is that everything has got a tipping point, including wealth accumulation. Poverty also has a tipping point. And it's often not spoken of, but everything has a tipping point. And if we're not careful and we assume that we can just extract infinite wealth out of an environment that has got very finite resources, including goodwill. Goodwill is a finite resource. The goodwill of fellow community members is a finite resource. If we're not careful and we think we can just extract lock, stock, and barrel, I think we would get to a tipping point at a level where we cannot even undo that type of damage. So environmental damage is both physical and spiritual. That's my take.
Sure, beautiful. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
No, but I just want to thank you for the opportunity to chat. It's been great, and I think that my future is to firstly be a person that people trust to name illusions and be true to myself and my heritage. So some of the conversations I have and some of the topics I talk on make people uncomfortable. The aim is not to offend. The aim is to remove the veil of indifference. And you then choose to ignore willfully. You cannot say you didn't know. You just say, well, I knew and I don't care anyway. Even that, I think, is better, because there's a chance you'll turn if you adopt that energy as, I couldn't be bothered. I don't know. I don't want to know. And if I never know, I'm even better off. That is my aim, just to peg away and chip away at that level of indifference. So, and I think ethical AI is the way I would like to do that.
Oh, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah,
Incredible.
thank you. Thanks,
JX.
Charlie.